Welcome to the Hair Society's podcast, Thinking Out Loud. Today's guest, David Schwartz, president of Hair Visions International, and we're going to talk about the supply chain, the disruption in that supply chain, and how it impacts the salon, distributor, as well as the manufacturer. Let's dive right in with today's host, Ken Bastow.
We're good.
Fantastic. Well, I know you answered the questions already, but the first question is, how long do you think it's going to be before the Chinese factories are back up to about 50% of capacity?
Let me answer that question this way. First of all, what is your expectation as far as what you think the percentage is currently?
I think the percentage is probably a third or less of production.
What we're hearing, and not specifically only from the factories that Hair Visions deals with, but from the industry, from what I'm reading in all different things, it's about 25-30%, give or take. It may be 35% at a particular factory. So I asked these questions to our factories, knowing that was one of the questions, and I knew the answer that they were going to give. Basically, it's really dependent on when things start opening up in China. They really can't predict that. It's an unknown right now, and it's not an answer that we want to hear as distributors, and it's surely not an answer that the retailers want to hear, because you want to hear positive news. But the bottom line is, they're working daily on trying to recruit. I'm in contact with every one of our factories daily to find out what is the status with the production, the delivery time, as well as the concern that we have that there's a lack of knotters, as I think everybody in the industry should be aware of at this point. And they're training, and it takes time to train. And when they do train them, it's on polyurethane skin units, it's the V-loops, it's the simple stuff, and it takes months and months and months to get these people up to speed. The biggest problem that we're seeing right now is that the training in certain factories are going well, but they don't have the amount of knotters that they want. One of our factories thought by the end of November they'd have 200 new knotters, and they're only at about 50. So they're behind for so many reasons, which we can get into maybe some later questions. But I'd be giving you an answer that I'm hoping for, as opposed to a realistic number. I'm going to say that it's probably going to take about 6 months, in my opinion, for the Chinese factories to get ramped up to where they, it may be past 50%, but a ramp up period. And I see that being, at the end of the first quarter of next year, to be quite honest with you. Listen, when the borders open up, wherever the borders are that, the units are sent out to, we're going to feel a sigh of relief. We're going to feel that the light switch is on a dimmer. It's not going to just flip open or switch open. It's going to be on a dimmer, where you will start to see a fairly fast progression of ramp up. But it's not going to be, I flip it up and all of a sudden, the floodgates open up and all the stock units come in. Because I got to be honest with you, we must have thousands upon thousands of, through our different purchase orders, of different models ordered, not only at our regular factories, but at some of the other factories, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit on some of the other questions. So we're prepared to overinvest in inventory when the time comes. Our warehouse is big enough to do that. We're willing, we're able to do it financially, but we're not at that point yet, unfortunately.
Right. So I understand that with China, that was one of the biggest concerns, because a large populace of all of the vendors' goods come through China, or did come through China. And I know you mentioned that you diverted a lot of your production to Indonesia, and of course the same process there. A lot of new team members have to be trained, new ventilators have to be trained. Is it the same projected timeline of 6 months before these ventilators are trained, so they could be delivering and making good quality product that will pass inspection?
Excellent question. I'm going to answer that in two parts. I think some people believe that only China was affected by this knotting issue and by COVID. And of course, that's not true. The whole world has been affected by COVID. Every country, every city, every business has been affected. in Cambodia and Vietnam, and as well as Indonesia. Indonesia was shut down for a while, as all the China factories were, for months. And currently, our Indonesia factory, which is probably one of the larger ones, that's been around, we've been doing business with them for 25 years. They have plenty of employees. The problem is they're not working in the type of shifts that, I mean, currently in our office, we have everybody spread out because of COVID. A lot of people working remote, and they have the same issue. They can't put people right on top of each other because of the COVID restrictions. So at any given time, they have less people, but they're working longer shifts, or they're working every other day. So they've got the people and they're hiring more people. I have a lot more confidence that the Indonesian factory is going to be much more successful in their training. I've already been told that they've located and hired hundreds of more people because of the amount of influx of product that we're, the supply chain that we're giving them as far as production. We've probably increased our custom orders currently at 30%, making sure they can handle the workload. And we probably, I believe about 8 to 10 different models have already been sent over, prototyped. In fact, we're getting our first deliveries the middle of November of our most popular units, which are the Omni Laces and the Versalites, and the most popular units that Hair Vision sells. And that's going to take several weeks for that to, if we're going to get 50 Versalites the first week, the second week we'll get 75, the third week we'll get 100. Every week it should increase a little bit, not by a huge amount of numbers, but we believe by the end of December, we're going to feel and see the difference of our stock inventory. In fact, today I went in the warehouse with my iPhone and I took pictures of our shelves. And of course, our shelves are quite empty compared to what they were, 9 months ago. And I did that because I believe we're going to start to see in November and December the shelves fill up without even looking at a report, without having any analytics done, just knowing what's coming in and what's being put on the shelf. So to answer your question for the second part is no, I believe it's going to take about 3 months for them to ramp up. And we're being told that once they ramp up, which would be, if you take 3 months from, let's call it the end of the year to maybe January, that our customs will probably take for a top of head at that time, instead of, the people who are waiting 7 and 8 months right now, that it's going to take probably an average of less than 12 weeks. That's a significant decrease in the time people are waiting. Now, that's still a fairly long time compared to what it was, pre-COVID. People want to get their customs made in 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 7 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't know if we're ever going to go back to that time frame. Maybe we will. But if we can start getting 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks for a custom unit on a routine basis, that's progress.
A couple of additional questions. Now, when you're talking about having all of these ventilators up to speed and to be able to hit the new production levels and the timelines, 2 questions on that. Is that in both China and in Indonesia, 1? And 2, what about the inspection teams? Have you amped up on the inspection team since it's going to be a lot of new ventilators to ensure the quality of the products?
Yes, a great question, Ken. First, let me talk about Indonesia. The quality control that they have there isn't going to change. They have the quality control people in place, and I'm not concerned about the quality control there whatsoever, because the new knotters that they're getting, or if they're taking skilled knotters maybe from other factories, that's a possibility too. They have the same strict protocols as China had. The problem is China, because of the fact that there's such a delay, they probably are skipping a few steps. There's no doubt, and that's my, a bigger fear of anything is that the quality, once they get ramped up, all of a sudden we're going to get calls saying this is, the knotting is terrible, and things of that nature. What we're telling people right now, because of the shortage of not hair, but the delay in product coming, is that you're going to recognize possibly some changes in the thickness of a skin unit, or the knotting isn't going to be exactly the same. And all we're telling them is, listen, you've got a creative team that can do magic, And you've got to be able to, during this, crisis, to be able to do what you do to make the hair look beautiful when the bottom line is, what does the customer look like when they walk out? Do they look good? That's the bottom line. And even if they have to do some minor changes, and many are right now, that's what they have to go through. I can't tell you what's going to be in 6 months. Again, I can predict that things are going to go back to normal. There will be the quality that we expect, that we demand. But I also want to let you know, we can't just be in one factory for many reasons. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket, and God forbid if we did that and we were all in just 1 or 2 China factories, I don't know where we'd be today. With all the different China factories that we work with for many years and the Indo factory, we're still behind, we're still delayed. However, we're still being able to get the orders out, to the best of our ability. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I think I just went in a complete circle there talking about being in different factories. We still also plan to be in China factories when the Chinese factories are able to either reopen at 50%, 75%, and we're going to be, we're playing a chess game right now. We're moving pieces constantly. We're moving orders from one factory to another. We're balancing out what purchase orders we have to send to which factory, and that can change from week to week. And it's very difficult for us as a distributor to be able to manage that, because it's like I need somebody on this 24/7, where before it was like weekly we would do this. So that's where I think we stand with the different factories, the production and the quality.
And I think that's great, David, when you're saying that you have multiple POs for same styles in different factories. You're covering your own tracks. Only problem is there might be a little inconsistency as you.
There will be, yeah.
But that can be worked out through the salon. I know.
And let me just, and I'm glad you brought that up. The biggest concern when any retailer sends a custom unit to a factory where they have been using for years, all of a sudden goes to, let's call it a different ventilator. Mm-hmm. The knotting is going to be different. Obviously, handmade sewing is handmade sewing. There's no 2 ventilators that can ventilate exactly the same way.
I would argue that even the same ventilator may have different knotting from one unit to the next based on their fatigue.
Based on their fatigue, based on just on under normal circumstances, they had a good day yesterday, a bad night. Yep. They came into work and they put 1 too many hairs into an area or less. Absolutely, but an inconsistency doesn't necessarily mean something negative. It just means something slightly different. So it could be actually better. We don't know that yet. So we obviously have had many units duplicated over the years at different factories for custom. And the one thing that we've done proactively years ago is we've had each factory make not every unit that's on our shelf, but a majority of the units, so that if we ever had to make a change, it was there. So I want to give you, for instance, so 8 units, 8 different models have been selected since June to go to the Indo factory. Our first POs are coming in, as I mentioned, mid-November. We saw samples because they haven't made that for us in a long time. That's why it's taking so long from June to November, because we had to get prototypes. Now we sent the 2nd and 3rd and 4th PO in for 4 other units. They've made them in customs, and we've told them for a skin unit, we do not want to see a prototype. We want you to go right into production. Will the density be a little different? The answer, I believe, will be yes. It may be a little more dense. It may be a little less dense. We don't know. We're confident that the knotting will be good. Is the base going to be maybe a little bit thicker on a PU, on a 3 millimeter that maybe is a 4 millimeter? Maybe. But we will perfect that as the purchase orders continue going forward and say, we want you to less density. We want you to lighten up the color. We want you to make it a little bit thicker on the PU, and the same thing with the lace units. But there are a few units that they have not made either in a long time, or they have not made at all. And those we do have to get prototypes on, because we're not going to take the chance of getting 200 units in and it's not what we want. And that's going to be on longer hair wigs. That's going to be on more complicated base designs. But here's where the problem is. It's a long, tedious process. By the time they get it, make the prototype, send it to us, hopefully we don't have to perfect it. We're now down at least 6-8 weeks because of that. If we have to perfect it, they want to send another prototype that takes another 2-3 months. It is a long process to get it right.
Yeah, from my experience, I understand that. Basically, dubbing the models in different factories, base densities, curl patterns, ventilation,
Absolutely.
plays a key factor. And sometimes, believe it or not, the clients or the guests at the clinics like the new systems better than the original factory. And then when you go back to the original factory, they're
They
like,
see the difference. Yeah, and that's happened, by the way.
yes, I know, I've experienced it firsthand. For sure. My next question for you is, are you researching any other factories in Indonesia and any other countries besides China?
Yes. When this all started in February, when we realized what was going on, no one knew the extent. So really for the first few months when factories were closed, and they were, the Chinese factories were closed, our Indonesia factory was closed for as much as 2 months, which people forget about, because when factories close, there's no production. We at that time did not realize how long that was going to take. So we're now in April and in May. Factories started to reopen. We started to recognize there's a problem, and the virus may not be going away as quickly as some people thought it would. So what I started to do is I started contacting people that we've dealt with in the past. Some of a factory that did our extensions years ago that we're not using now, that does human hair extensions, we contacted them. I'm right now working with a raw distributor, raw hair broker, to work with one of the factories who is a synthetic factory in Indonesia, who does hand-tied synthetic, but unfortunately they don't have a big supply of human hair. So what we're doing is I'm now all of a sudden becoming very learned in the raw hair part of this business, which is not my expertise. And I'm trying to connect these folks from this other country to work with them, because I don't want to be the middleman. I'm going to connect them together, but I surely don't want to buy, kilos of hair and start shipping it off to different factories. That's not a business I want to be in. So yes, we've been talking to different factories. We've even had samples made in August. We had samples made. We were not fully satisfied with that. I don't know where we're going with that. So I'm constantly investigating other countries, as well as I mentioned, raw hair distributors. Right now, there was a question asked in the American Hair Loss link: is there a hair shortage? And my answer was no, there are manufacturing issues throughout Asia. And most of the other vendors answered the question similarly, except for one. There is no hair shortage that I'm aware of, even in China. Today, I can't tell you what's going to be in 6 months, but today there is not a hair shortage. And that's important for the retailers to feel a little confident with. But I have been told that at some point, because of COVID in India, and India is not in good shape as far as the virus goes, the people who donate, they're not donating as much as they donated in the past because of the infection. So they're not donating because they're afraid to go and get their hair, cut, or they're not going because they're not allowed to due to restrictions. I'm not sure. So I don't know where we're going to be 6 months, which is why I'm in contact with a broker to be able to get our factories, if they're going to have a problem, I'm trying to connect them to say, hey, we can get, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilos if you're willing to do that, if the price is right and if they think the quality is good. I know there were issues in the past with production, even before I was in the business, when South Korea was obviously, producing the hair, and then they had to go to China. We had a factory that burnt down about 15 years ago, and we were like, oh my God, what do we do? So you learn from your experiences, but I'll tell you what has really helped me be a little proactive. And that's living in Florida, being in hurricane state, where you have to be prepared for shutdowns, working remote, your building being destroyed, the roof caving in. We've had all that experience over the last 20 years at Hair Visions, and we still came through it. So I do look at being proactive. The problem is we don't control the manufacturing. We don't own it. We don't control it. It's in another country, 1,000 miles away. If we had that control, I think we would have a lot better answers for you and the retailers. We're very dependent on what the factories tell us. And being unable to travel right now, I can't go there to see if what they're telling me is actual. I just have confidence in the people that we deal with and in the factories that we deal with, that what they're telling us is factual.
So let me ask you a follow-up there, though. You said we don't own the manufacturing, and if you did, you might have at least a little more insight. Is there a reason, because I think a lot of salons might ask the question, well, why don't you own the entire process? Is there a specific reason why somebody like yourself wouldn't own the manufacturing process?
It's, well, you all, I think everybody knows we're owned by the hiking company that happens to have a couple of factories. So
Sure.
I'm going to put that aside for a second. A lot of people ask us, how come we don't own retail shops? A lot of the folks own retail shops, and that's, of course, called vertical integration.
Sure.
I would rather own, I think, a retail shop than a factory, to be quite honest with you, and have that part of the vertical integration. But we, as in myself and my team, we would have to, depend on them if we owned them, as the hiking group does. The hiking group owns factories. And I have a great relationship with one of the factories that we do not a lot of business with, even though they own us. They just don't have all the models or the materials that we want, so most of it's done elsewhere. And the information we're getting from our hiking-owned factories is consistent with all the other factories that we're talking to on a daily basis. So at least I know when I hear something from one factory, I'm getting confirmation, not just from one or two other factories, but from a hiking-owned factory. There's very little that they can do right now based on borders being shut, COVID, which has affected a lot of the workers. And the one thing, which is the big elephant in the room, is why are there so few workers? It's probably a question you want to ask me, and I'm sure you will ask me. Take the pandemic out of the equation, and I don't know what percentage that affected workers who may have gotten sick or may have decided they're too afraid to come back to work, which is the same in the US. It's happening here. I think the biggest issue, I know the biggest issue is there's always been a shortage of knotters. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's been like that, and you and I, Ken, we talked about this before. This is not something that happened because of COVID. This has been going on for a dozen years. Mm-hmm. That's why the factories have sent out to these remote locations over the last 8, 9, 10 years, which is why delivery times have gotten so delayed, because the labor is cheaper in the countrysides and other countries where they send these out, which keeps the prices as low as they can possibly be, which is still a high expense to the retailers and a high expense to us as the distributor. What's happening is the knotters that are coming back are requesting more money. And that's where the surcharge, and everybody's talking about the surcharge. Everybody in the link, okay, says that there's been a surcharge that has been shared, passed on to the distributors and passed on to the retailers to some extent. We've been hit with a surcharge. It's been 4 months. We've only started charging our customers since September 15th. We also got hit with another surcharge from one of the factories and doubled it, which we're not passing on. They're doing whatever they can to keep those workers wherever those workers are, and they're going to the highest bidder. If somebody's offering them $5 more, $2 more, they're going. So those knotters are not loyal for the most part. They're going from factory to factory, and it's changing day to day. But the bigger issue is these workers, okay, no one is coming out of school, no one is, graduating school and going into the ventilating business. It's a tedious job. It doesn't pay as well as working for Apple or for any of the electronic companies or the car companies that are in China. They make more money doing something else. So where are they going to get these people from? They're starting to retrain. That's where we're at right now, trying to retrain new people to do something that's an art and a
Right.
very skilled profession.
I'm with you, David, because I remember years ago, we would call the ventilators indentured servants because basically they went to the factory for 2-3 months at a time. They lived in factory housing. They bought their food from a factory store or a restaurant. They didn't have insurance, and they were totally dependent upon the factory for the stipend that they made. And then about 12 years ago, as you mentioned, that's when they implemented better wages because they wanted insurance, they wanted benefits, because when they did go home for harvest and Chinese New Year's that we spoke about earlier and gone for 3 or 4 weeks, the good ventilators didn't come back.
Exactly.
And then you were stuck retraining people every single year. It's good to get a refresh on this because this is a fact and it's only made things even worse as COVID's gone on and is projected
Exactly.
to go on longer in time. I think you answered this question pretty much, David, but I'm going to ask it again. On your projected timelines for your stock POs, are you airing all this product in? So what's the projected timeline? You said about 3 months is when you're going to see more of the POs being fulfilled.
Yes.
Do you air in portions of those POs to fulfill ratio for current back as well as new orders to be placed?
Yes. Well, I don't know how other distributors do it. It's obviously less expensive to ocean freight,
Right.
but all of our human hair products are always shipped by air. Always. Has always been that way, even pre-COVID. Nothing is shipped by boat other than some of our synthetic product. So all our human hair is shipped by air.
But will you ship partial POs?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad you asked that question. I don't believe that we ever get 100% of any PO, even pre-COVID. If we ordered, I'm just giving you an example, 100 Versalights in different colors, and I'm talking men's specifically, and 100 Omni Lights and 100 of this, and let's say the purchase order is 300 units. And by the way, we order pre-COVID, we would order every 2 weeks and every week if we felt that if we were back ordered. We've got tons of things in the backlogged in the pipeline. They will ship it in, and there'll be, instead of 10 color 1Bs, there'll be 7, and then we're constantly having to keep track of what is in the pipeline that was back ordered. So it's always been that way. That's the way our business works. So everything is shipped when they're ready. We don't wait for any PO to be completely finished.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I know you answered this question partially earlier before. As we know, some of the custom orders are out 11 to 12 months at this point in time from when COVID first started. The projection timeline for new custom orders, you're saying top of the heads are about 3 months now?
It's going to depend on which factory. So like I said, we're still, our POs at the China factories we have not canceled them. We have not retracted them. Our goal is to let them fill them. I don't know when that's going to take full effect. Like I said, I think it's going to be the first quarter of next year when we're going to see the China factories really getting up to speed, not knowing if that's 50% or higher. But with the Indonesia factory, okay, we believe that we're going to start to see within 3 months, we're going to start to see those new purchase orders, okay, really start to ramp up, because I just got, just a few days ago, I told you we have some orders coming in November. And the first PO was for 440 pieces, and 380 of those units, it's, like I said, Versalite, Omnilight, it's a couple of women's top of heads. So we're trying to balance out where we see the biggest need. And they're showing us every week what's going to come in. So 70 are coming in November 13th. November 20th, 90 are coming in. And we see a progression. This is their projection and forecast of what we're going to be getting. Sometimes they're off by a few days, but by the 4th week of when the first PO comes in from Indonesia on these new POs, the order has tripled from 60, 70 pieces to 200 pieces. So we're very confident that if they can keep that up, that within 3 months, we're going to start to see, in a weekly basis, 300, 400, 500 units coming in. a diverse bunch of different units, men's and women's. So I'm confident. But here's the thing, it's a moving target.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, we're now going, they say the US is going into we're in our second wave. And what that means, I don't know. Are we closing down again? I heard some shops are going to close down again. I don't know if that's true. I do know that in China, where the factories are outside of Qingdao, it was on the news, it was on CNN, it was on, and it was on Fox, that 10 million people in that area, there's about 8 to 9 million people in population, were tested over a 5-day period for COVID because they found that somebody got sick. And they found 12 or 13 positive cases, which is amazing that that's all they found. What's more amazing is that they were able to test 10 million people, but they actually closed down for about 4 or 5 days. You guys don't know that, okay? I know that, but I'm not going to announce that to the industry because it was only 4 or 5 days. They reopened again yesterday. Go back to April when people started to really get nervous. But I think at that point, retailers were starting to close, I think in May. I don't know when you guys started to close it. Right now it's like one big month. In the beginning, what our salespeople were doing was saying, hey, stock up now. Our inventory was full, we had a huge inventory. And I had to stop that after about 4 weeks because I saw the writing on the wall. And I said, whoa, you can't offer somebody 15 or 10 or 20 units of an Omnilite 1B because we've got to be able to help the majority of the customers. So what we wound up doing is I put something into effect. I just reminded myself of one of the debates sounding like our political people saying I put something into effect. I did. I put a policy into effect that we can't do that. And today we can't do it at all. I mean, it's onesies and twosies for the customers. Customers are ordering, 5 of one or 10 of one, knowing they're going to be on back order, but they know that they're going to come in, they're going to trickle in, and that we're going to send out what we can. So if 10 Omni, one of our lace units in a 1B comes in, do I give it all to one retailer or do I give it to 10 retailers? My goal is to try to make 10 retailers happy than to just make one retailer happy.
Sure.
That's what we have to do to keep the industry going. That's
a good follow-up question. With that said, David, when someone places a back orders go in chronological order.
That is correct.
Salon has, let's say, 8 Omnilite Color 1Bs, and they all come in. Do you override the system and not give that one salon all 8?
They probably wouldn't get all 8 because they probably wouldn't come in all at the same time. So what will happen is, so they'll get probably, let's say, I'm just going to say, let's say there are 50 on back order, and that's a big possibility of a 1B, and you ordered 8. Obviously, if 15 or 20 came in, we'll probably give you 2 or 3, because we know that you have folks that are, if it's for one customer who is on program here, we know they're not going to need all of them, at least an Omnilace, they're not going to need it every month. Hopefully that'll last 3 months, as well as an Omnilite. Now, if you're ordering one of our thinnest skin units, a razor, which by the way, we're still getting them in because they're quick to make, but I don't know how, I wouldn't advise, if I was a retailer, I would try to get somebody into something that they don't have to wear, and come in for, a new hairpiece every three weeks. I would try to get into something, maybe every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, because you've got to spread that out. If you could, we were able to get our hands on from other manufacturing sources. And this is another thing that we've done. And to be honest with you, very complicated and very scary. We're literally buying 50 and 100 units from different factories that have been contacting us, okay, for skin units. And everything that we're getting is skin units with V-loop, because that's the simplest, easiest thing to teach a nada. And why are they available? It's because it's the simplest, easiest thing to make. And, and I have to explain that to retailers on a daily basis that don't want to accept the answer, that's simpler to make, and I can get more of those, and I'm going to get more of those from our existing manufacturers, and wherever else I can buy it at a higher price. I'm not charging the retailer a higher price, to get them the hair that they need for their consumer. We get it. We understand what you're going through.
Absolutely.
We really do.
I'm going to stay in my razors. Is that okay?
That's okay. You got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you kind of answered this next question, but I'm going to hit it to you anyways. I know that you have the $20 surcharge on every custom and stock unit that you're delivering today. Now, is that portion going to be part of the new price for this year? Is there going to be a annual increase next year? Because as you know, very well know, most of your retailers, or we call them clinics today, obviously because of COVID, that a lot of their clients, guests, are on program hair systems a year on a fixed price already. So if the prices continue to go up, the clients themselves, the clinics, their staff is going to have to charge more for the systems because on average, there's a 2.5% to 5% increase that they're going to lose if we keep going in this direction based upon the price they're paying now.
That's a great question. We answer that quite often throughout the day. My staff is, brought up to speed on what answers we should be giving. So in all honesty, we don't know what's going to be tomorrow. I go to bed every night. I'm writing my emails to the factory. I'm hoping for the best. I wake up in the morning, not knowing what I'm going to read, what kind of response I'm going to get. Is it more negative? Is it neutral? Is it positive news?
Mm-hmm.
So far, we've gotten, as I said, from all our factories, the $20 surcharge. And we recently got one of the factories $40, which just blew my mind. And we still have a lot of customs at that factory. We're moving as much as we can that's feasible to move if it's not been started to another, to the Indo factory. If I was going to take a guess, an educated guess, I would say that I don't believe there'll be any additional increase this year. I mean, the year is just about over. I can't say for sure, but I would expect sometime next year there's going to be, when things level out and production comes back a little bit, I believe there will be a price increase. I don't know this for sure. And believe me, I don't ask the factories. I don't say, well, do you think there's going to be a price increase? Because I'm opening up the door for them to say, oh, they're expecting one. So it's a very sensitive subject, but I think there will potentially be a price increase. This $20 surcharge is supposed to be temporary.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we wrote in our email out to the customers. Temporary is how long? Is temporary a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? We don't know what temporary is because we don't know how long COVID is going to last. How long? I'll ask you a question. When is COVID going to be over?
It's an unknown. The funny thing though too, David, is we've been advising some of our members too that when they start selling new contracts, programs, that they should rewrite their contracts and put a paragraph in there for unforeseeable circumstances like a pandemic as an example, based on price change, because most people have built in things like there could be a 5% increase, may or may not be year over year, but that's about it. And something like this surcharge, even whether it's permanent or not, so just like you have sat on it for a while before you passed it on, a lot of salons will sit on it for a while before they pass it on, but they run into the same struggles themselves, which is if I sold a program, say 3 weeks before you gave me the surcharge, and I bake into that program my cost of goods, my time for the stylist and everything else, and then all of a sudden, and let's say that was a program with 6 hair pieces in it, and all of a sudden now I'm being given a $20 increase per hair piece, that obviously is going to have some impact financially on the program. And you multiply that times, 100 or 500 programs, now it starts adding up. So for the retailer to eat it, it can be a rather large undertaking financially. So what I've told people is, 1, change your wording in your contract, and 2, have a conversation with your clients. I think most of them, for the most part, are going to be understanding. You'll have a few that will, balk at it and stuff, but I think for the most part, people are going to understand that if you can explain to them the entire supply chain issue, they're going to be, relatively understanding the whole thing.
And I'm glad you stated that and that you have these conversations, not only with your own customers, but with the members of the Hair Society. Listen, we here at Hair Visions completely understand. We're not in your shoes, but we understand. We know what it's like to deal with a consumer who needs hair. We've been to retail shops. I've been to retail shops. It's not our field of expertise, but I know what you're going through. And so do all of our consultants know that, and they feel. I mean, we have consultants at the end of the day, some of them are crying because they can't either help a customer or the customer was very rude and yelled at them, one of the two, because some customers don't get it, very frustrated and don't understand, and others do. And I'm going to just say this. We've got to all be open-minded, okay, flexible, understand what we're going through. Just like I said to you, when is COVID going to be over? And you said it's an unknown. Well, we don't know what tomorrow is going to be with the pandemic. We don't know what our industry is going to look like. But I'm an optimist. I know we will get through this. Will we get hurt a little bit? Yeah, I can tell you that our business is way off. I can tell you that, my goal is to just get through this year, to get through the beginning of next year, because we know it's now going into next year. And we're going to rebuild, but, we thought we'd rebuild sooner. But no, we're going to have to rebuild later, and that's okay. We're going to be prepared for that. So I agree with you. I think you have to have those honest conversations with your consumers. Let them know that, there is a surcharge. You have to do it on a case-by-case basis. You may not want to, give a surcharge to somebody right away, just like we didn't with our customers. And you may be able to tell a customer right away, listen, I've got some news. It's not what you want to hear. You buy 6 units a year and it's going to come out to X amount more dollars over a year. I wish I can give you better news, and hopefully, it's gonna be temporary. But temporary is, could be a long time. Will consumers actually leave a retailer because you're passing on a $20 surcharge? I mean, I can't answer that. I'd like to believe no.
The alternative, where are they going to go?
Well, exactly. But
yeah.
I'd like to make this statement. I hope that the studios that we deal with, or just studios even that we don't deal with, hopefully they understand that Hair Visions is not making up a story of a surcharge for us to make more money because we're in bad times. That's the furthest from the truth. I will make this statement. We've absorbed, as I said, the surcharge for months. And I think you guys know, and I know that our customer base knows. In the beginning of the year, Hair Visions got an increase from 2 of its factories, and I sent an email out to everybody in, I think it was in March, that we were going to have an increase. It's 6%, 7%. I don't know. It's different for every unit. And then the COVID hit like a bolt of lightning. And I retracted that with another email a few weeks later, if you recall, and I retracted that and said, there will be no increase until further notice, which is current. But the factories did not give us the luxury of that. We've been paying that increase since the end of January on top of the surcharge. And that's our problem. That's not your problem. But I do want everybody to understand that we're taking losses too. We're absorbing losses. We have people that are canceling orders, that are not paying for orders. We're working with our retailers, with the studios. We want everybody to come through this, and we hope it's sooner than later. We do.
We all do. And I think you partially answered my next question. With a lot of the clinics that are actually having to sub out different stock systems and sub out stock systems for custom systems, the clients are really kind of raising the roof a little bit here because they're complaining, one, that they shouldn't have to pay for a stock unit that wasn't originally sold to them in their program. They don't think it's fair. And two, they don't feel like if they're waiting on a custom that's been in production for months and months, that they should have to pay for that stock unit that's holding them over. So this has been a real challenge there because the clinics are absorbing the cost of having to sub the systems out with other systems too. And then the next thing on top of that, part B of this question, is are you offering any type of additional warranty when they have to customize these systems to make do because the original system isn't in or the custom isn't in, because 9 times out of 10 they have to be chemically processed, and that normally nulls and voids the warranty.
So that's a two-part question, so I'm going to answer it in 2 parts. I understand when we're offering a stock unit in lieu of a custom not being available. Or we're offering a stock unit that's different than the stock unit that they would normally wear because we don't have it in that color, or we don't have it in inventory. That's the part where I mentioned earlier, you've got to be open-minded. We've got to understand the situation. I don't know what the answer to that is other than what Richard said about you've got to have that heart-to-heart conversation with your consumer. The option, the only other alternative is, listen, I don't have anything for you. I'm sorry, but it's stuck in wherever. It's not going to be here for 3 months. You're due for a service and another application, tomorrow. I won't have anything for you. So the option is, you're either going to wear what you're wearing. You don't want to ever tell them to take the hair off, but wear what you're wearing, or I have an alternative for you. It's, you don't have to tell somebody it's stock. I mean, I keep telling retailers, you can take something off our shelf and you can do whatever you want to do with it. You can wait a week. You can cut it. You can put tabs on. You can do whatever you want. You've customized it. You took a handmade product that we put on a shelf that you took, and if you colored it, you customized it. If you highlighted it, you customized it. If you cut it in a little bit, you've customized it. You put some tape tabs in, you customized it. I mean, I can't tell the retailer what or how they should talk to their consumers. Your consumers better than we do. However, to me, that's not lying. Or you can come straight out and say, I do have an alternative unit, and your unit will be in, maybe in 3 months or 6 months. At some point, they're going to pay for the amount of units that you sold them for that year, and they may have 5 more in production. That's fine. That's we'll hold those for you if we have to for a little bit. You'll put it on your shelf as long as you maintain that customer and they come back. I don't believe the units are going to go to waste. I honestly don't believe that. That's the kind of open conversation I think the retail has to have. Now, as far as the warranty, I'm going to share a little knowledge with you that you may or may not be aware of. Warranties aren't what they used to be. Okay. So we used to give 6-month warranties on on the more durable units. We give less 3 months on the less durable. The razors, we basically can't give a 3-month warranty on something that lasts 3 weeks. Our warranties from the factory are half of that and have been for years. Right. So we do not get 6-month warranties on anything from a factory. The longest manufacturing warranty we get is 3 months. Some of them are 6 weeks, one month, depending on the unit. We've never, ever, to this day, to my knowledge, shared that with the retailers. Maybe some of my reps have, but we've never held you accountable to say, well, we're only getting 3 months, so the 6-month warranty we promised you is out the window. So we can't extend out any further, and we're not going to get anything further from the factories because they've cut back their warranties, like I said, I think it's several years now, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, I do remember this. That's why I actually brought it up.
And it's not the answer a retailer really wants to hear from their distributor, from their vendor, but it's as honest as I can be with you. But, again, we're going to always try to work with the retailer. And I think that's what we're known to do. And yes, sometimes we say, hey, listen, your client's worn this hair for 6 months. It only lasts 4 months. So, I mean, what are you asking for? But we do work with our customers. And I think you guys know that. I hope most of the retailers feel the same way.
Yeah. And the reason I did bring that up, David, is I already knew the answer to that question. but a lot of people didn't. They just assume that when they turn around and they get a product that it has X amount of warranty to it. And there is factors that play in, but there's also factors going on with COVID where they have to substitute systems out. And Richard,
I do understand that.
And Richard touched on this question a little bit earlier. With the timeline that the clinics get as a warranty on products, stock and custom, that they just house on their shelves, I really feel, and I hope you agree with me, if the factories gave a little bit of a better warranty, which I know they won't, they would want to house more stock and order more customs in advance to have on the shelves to be able to offset not having inventory at all.
Well, that would be a great question to have asked me 9 months ago, pre-COVID, because, right now, I mean, as far as having enough items on the shelf, I believe right now the factories, they're making them and shipping them immediately. They don't have anything on the shelves. Whatever's coming into our warehouse, and, we used to get, 5, 6, up to 10 cartons of customs in stock almost on a daily basis. And a carton consists of anywhere from 40 to 50 units. We're getting maybe 2 to 3 cartons, and we're not getting them every day. We're probably getting 3, 4, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We didn't get anything today. So our influx, our importing has been reduced significantly. So, but whatever we get in, it's not even making it to the shelf. It's filling a back order. But I'm not answering your question, because your question is, so you order 5 units all at once. Are we talking stock or custom?
Either or. The whole point
Okay.
is being able to house more product in the clinic so they have reserve on hand for themselves. As Richard mentioned, some clinics, from my past experience too, would order once a month, twice a month, but they would not have any extra inventory sitting around that wasn't earmarked for a specific client.
Well, I believe from our experience, and you should probably have this from being involved with a lot of different retailers, there are the retailers that have a fairly, again, let's go back pre-COVID, that ordered a lot of stock, had a fair amount in their storage room. They've paid for it. They've had the cash flow to do that, and they always wanted to have it, and that's the way they ran their business. Then there's those retailers that order it as they need it. Mm-hmm. I've never understood that, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you know that you have a customer that orders 6 Omni lights a year, okay, you don't have to order all 6 Omni lights in color 1B. I'd have at least 3 on the shelf for so many reasons. Do you even check them when they come in? Maybe there's a defect in it. What happens when you're ready to put it on the customer's head and apply it and you didn't check it, and all of a sudden you find out that it's a different unit, God forbid, we shipped you the wrong unit, or that there's a defect to it, and you're finding out that same day that the customer's sitting in your chair. I always think that, product comes in, you should look to see what comes in, and you should always have some inventory in your back room, in your storage room. But that's not the case. We know that for a fact from our customers who say, do me a favor, ship it overnight Saturday morning. You know how expensive that is to ship overnight Saturday morning? Why would you do that when you could have ordered it, Wednesday and had it shipped to you and got it on Friday? So I can't answer the question as to why retailers do what they do. I mean, we try to coach them and tell them what to do. But as far as the warranty goes, I want to answer the question on when you order, let's say 4 customs, for someone, and they all come in at the same time or within a month period. The warranty starts, as far as the factory is concerned, from the day they shipped it to us. Mm-hmm. So if I'm shipping it to you all on October 20th, and it's 6 months before they get to wear their second or third piece, because you were very proactive, which I give you guys credit for, that factory warranty to us, that's gone. So when you come to us and say it's made incorrectly, we want to know, why didn't you tell us that when you received it 6 months ago? We could have done something. But again, that's us trying to help and train the retailer. we will extend that. We will be able to go back to the factory on those circumstances to say, hey, there were 6 of them. You can't expect the customer to have worn all 6 of them, in the first month. So, you got to be able to help us out with a warranty, and we'll fight them, and we'll probably get that warranty. But if a warranty is voided from the factory, that doesn't mean it's necessarily voided from us to you. We'll always try to work on the side of the retailer. Not all the time. Sometimes retailers abuse the system a little bit, and it happens. But we're more going to favor the side of the retailer than we are not.
Are you finding that because retailers are using different systems to meet the needs of their clients, that might not be the system they would normally use, or that, like you said earlier, make it work for them, make their client look good? Are you finding that because of that opens up the door possibly for potential warranty issues too? Because then they're having to process something to make it work?
Well, I'm going to knock wood on that one. My desk is made out of wood. So we've been experiencing, we're in October now, and I'm going to go back to June and July. I believe we started to recognize, and you guys started to recognize during the summer that there was a shortage there was a delay, and there was a stock, shortage on our shelves. It didn't happen in April, didn't happen in May. June, we started to recognize it, July and August. So let's go back to August. So since August, we're talking 3 months now, we've delivered a lot of units, a lot of different units than what would normally be, required or requested. You guys have done a lot of amazing things. You may have had to, do a different curl pattern. You definitely had to maybe lighten or darken and color and this and that. And we have not had an overabundance or a huge significant amount of calls saying it didn't work or it screwed up. Yes, we've had a few. Absolutely. There's no doubt. Listen, we have had that since the beginning of hair replacement, where there's always been quality issues and things didn't come out exactly the way they wanted. We know that. Handmade product. I ordered Omni Light type units from a different factory. We got 50 of them in. And we sent it out to a customer who sent them back and said, there's a part. There's not supposed to be a part in right down the center. And I went, oh boy. So I had my technicians do the next best thing. I said, do me a favor and wash that. They washed it. 2 units came back. We can't use it. There's a part. The retailer, we couldn't say this for sure, but the retailer chose to send it back. We took it back. We washed it, and there was no part. It was, it was freeformed after that. It was just set that way. So where you have to go with that is I would have liked the retailer to have washed it and seen what would have happened. And if it stayed that way, we still would have taken it back. But we did it. So now my consultants know, my reps know that if someone says, hey, there's a part in it, okay, to say, hey, that will wash out. When you wash the unit and you cut it, that there will not be a part. There will not be a definitive part in that unit. But we're learning that because we're getting different things. We're getting new knotters that are doing things. We're seeing different things. So we're to answer your question, Richard, we're not seeing an overabundance of people calling saying it didn't work or the quality was terrible at this point. They're making it work.
That's good. That's good to hear, actually.
Well, like I said, knock wood. I mean, I'll wake up tomorrow morning and,
The thing is, David, in a perfect world, these clinic owners and stylists shouldn't really be telling their clients what they're wearing. What they really should be telling them is, I'm going to make you look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about a finished look. We're not talking about what the product is, more or less the application. I mean, you can go into a little detail, but the less you tell them, the better off you are, because if you have to sub a system out, if you can create that amazing look with a different system, they don't need to know. And I'm not trying to sound like smoke and mirrors here, but the whole fact of this is are you an image consultant? Are you a stylist that it's your job to make someone look good? Or is it your job to tell them that's the wrong base design?
Well, you're going to get a mixed answer on that one, because from what we know, a lot of retailers don't tell their customers. They just say, hey, listen, you're going to look great when you walk out. Now, a customer may feel the difference. Maybe the base is a little different. And of course, you don't want to upset them with a totally different type of base. You're not going to possibly put somebody who's so used to wearing lace into PU. You may have to during the COVID crisis if they're able to wear PU. But you're 100% right. From my experience over the last 20 years and my having many conversations with stylists and owners, that's your image consultants. And if you make them look beautiful, it really doesn't make a difference. So what you're going to be applying to their scalp tomorrow, if you can make them look good, it really, in my opinion, wouldn't make the difference. But I don't know what kind of relationship every retailer or stylist has with their customers, so I have to leave that up to them. But we would hope that they would be more towards what you're saying and not say, oh, this is an omni lace and it's got this many, hairs in a ventilated loop and it's a split knot. It's a this. They don't need to know that. It goes back to a lot of people are stuck in their ways and don't like change. So, if you have a consumer coming into your shop, let's call it 10 years, and you're giving him the same hair, the same style over and over and over again. And let's face it, he's getting older. He should probably be starting getting a little gray in his hair. Maybe he doesn't want gray, but if, the most natural looking person wearing hair is the person who you can't detect what they're wearing. And let's face it, if I have a beard and it's white and my hair is jet black, I'm probably going to say, is that guy wearing hair? Even if it's beautifully applied and it's a and there are people, by the way, that have white hair and naturally black hair. I mean, I'm not saying that's not true, but I think people start to look. There you go. People look, and you don't want them staring at your hair. That's what you don't want them to do. So I think that it's good that you allow your customer to have a change. It's no different than now they're 60 years old and you're giving them the same density they had when they were 30 years old. Come on, very few men have that much density in their hair 30 years later.
Or recession, the whole point about this is, as we all know, I've worn hair for about 26 years. And as long as my hair looks good, I'm not really too worried about the base design. I don't prefer lace personally, but if I can achieve a look, even if it's a different look than what I had before, I like that because styles change, and to get a hair system to look exactly the same every single time, unfortunately, looks fake, in my opinion, because everyone's hair looks a little bit different every single day.
Well, and to your point, David, too, I think it's important for the stylist or technician or salon owner, whoever's dealing with that client on an ongoing basis. I think it's incumbent upon them to not become complacent in putting the same system on them for 10 or 15 years, because you're right. Things do change in terms of, like Ken said, recession or in gray or whatever it may be. And I think it's important to bring in a different system and say, you know what, it's time that maybe we graduate you slowly into something different, not because we're trying to make more money off of you, but we're trying to make your progression in the look that you have look natural and not draw attention for the wrong reason.
Exactly. And I'm sure that the majority of the retailers and the consultants and the technicians, listen, if a consumer's not complaining and a technician is very busy, I don't want to say this, and I hope this doesn't happen often, but I'm sure it happens. They're not, you're going to get complacent because my customer's not complaining. Next, I hope that doesn't happen. But if you are an image consultant and you say, listen, I want to show you something different, or I want to put something different on you because I think it's more natural looking, more appropriate, or it's more stylish, or it's whatever the retailer or the consultant has to do. I think that shows a bit of more, that I'm more concerned about your look than just you come in, I apply, I cut, you're gone, next. I think that shows that you care about them. But
we have an open policy at our salons where if somebody wants to try something new, we don't charge them for the new, we just count it as one of their hairs. That way, they're always have the option. Like, because we have a few people that are wearing, say, an Edge, and they're curious about the razor, but they're not quite sure they want to make that jump because they know they might need more of them or whatever. But what we'll tell them is, you know what, you have zero risk to try it.
We know that the hair systems, okay, that are applied well and styled well and cut in well, most people don't notice that. You don't notice a good hair system. You notice the ones, like you said, you know, an 80-year-old guy who's got, you know, blondish red hair, you know, I don't think so. If you want to call attention to yourself, that's one thing. If you don't want to call attention to yourself, which I would like to believe most people don't want that, then you have to have this natural look. And that's up to the retailer. And some retailers do a beautiful job. And I think your policy is great that you give them that option. That's wonderful.
I love it. And it's basically just offering the client the latest technology. And that's what's super important, because really there's always something new out there, something that's improved upon the product that's going to help them ultimately look better. You housing larger quantities of inventory in the most popular styles and colors. And you already said that you were going to be doing that moving forward.
My team and I have been meeting a lot more often on things that we would never normally meet on, and that's the factory stuff. That's not something that's normally just a natural progression of a process. So I would say almost on a weekly basis, I'm meeting either with my sales management or my person who deals with the factory, or just to talk about what's going on, what's coming in inventory. And I made the decision about 2 weeks ago with my team that if we want to have higher quantity of product coming in, then we can't have the wide inventory that we used to. I believe, I can't say for sure, but I believe that Hair Visions probably had the largest, not quantity of product, which I believe we did, but we had the widest variety of product. We had 30 men's products and 25 women's. And I want to discontinue, for years, I wanted to discontinue, a Henry or something that's old, but yet there are customers that still want it. And when we say we're going to discontinue it, they get upset. So we buy minimum quantities of it in those certain colors. But now during COVID, I want to explain to you what we recently did. We took a look at each factory and we looked at the quantity of what we purchased or what we sold in a 18-month period. And actually we did a 12-month period prior to COVID because that was a truer number. And if we saw that there were 5 or 6 models that there were very little purchases of from the retailer, what we did is we said, we're going to temporarily suspend production on those. Now, we may have a customer says, I want a Permagraph 5. We go, well, okay, we sold maybe 50 last year. That's not something that I want the factory to focus on. I want the factory to focus on the Omni lights, the Omni laces, the Versa lights, the Alons, the edges, the items that people are, wanting. And somehow those retailers are going to have to be explained how to move their customers into those units, because in order to get more quantity of those units on my shelf, they can't be making 35 different types of units in 30 different colors.
Right.
So we have already made the decision and we suspended, I believe it's 5 or 6 men's and probably about 8 women's to focus on the top, maybe 15 men's and the top 12 women's. Now, this is not permanent. This is temporary. And like you said, maybe we never have to go back to ordering those because people are going to love the new units or because they're in a different unit. We also have new units, as you know, new models, Ken, because you tried one, that we were in production prior to COVID last year, a men's unit called the Axiom, that we got about 100 of those units in, and I said, we can't sell them because they can't produce them. They can't produce something new. They have to produce what is already, on POs. So we had to put a stop to something that we thought was going to be a very, very big, important product. We also have 3 brand new women's top of heads that are in production, and I had to stop that with 10 inches and 12 inches with French drawn. I'm talking gorgeous. We were so excited. We were launching it in March. I can't launch something that I can't, that's going to go into immediate back order. So I told the factory, you got to put a hold on that. We've got to focus on the more common, the more popular units. That's what I need you to focus on. I hope soon we can get those back into production for 2021. I just wanted to share that with you because that's what we're stuck with. That's a decision we had to make.
I think that's a really important thing to let people know. I think it's vital to focus on what's really needed versus
That's exactly what we're doing.
And I totally agree. As the leading hair distributor, what lessons have you learned through this COVID epidemic or pandemic, excuse me, and what are your projected growths for the next coming months, years? What policies have you implemented to help this growth?
Well, let me start off with what we've learned from an internal operational. I want to start with that and then go into a little bit more of how the production and everything else. I mentioned earlier, because we live in Florida, in a hurricane state, we always have to be prepared for 5 months of not knowing if we're going to have a storm. And this year was the perfect example of 26 or 27 named storms that Florida has been very fortunate to only have gotten bad weather and not been hit. But take a look at our neighbors to the west, Louisiana and Mississippi and all those. I mean, they got clobbered. If we were physically there, and that's where our operation was, we may not have a building. But what we've learned is that we have a brand new phone system that we got in February, literally as the COVID was approaching us, and that every single one of our employees are able to unplug the phone, take it home and plug it into a regular phone jack and be able to call their customers and be able to get into our server. So what we've learned from that is we didn't know about COVID at the time. We were just knowing that this is something we have to do because we live in a hurricane state. So that helped us with being able to get as many people remote as possible because we couldn't all be in the office and expose ourselves to the COVID virus. So that was operationally. From a manufacturing point of view, we now know that even though we have 5 main factories and 3 in China and 1 or 2 elsewhere, that I don't want to have 10 factories, but I now know that China may not be the main source going forward, which is why we're diverting to more into Indonesia. And people have asked me, why aren't you in, why can't you have a factory in Cambodia and Vietnam? And there are factories in Cambodia and Vietnam, and they're offshoots of Chinese factories who are still having the same problems. Okay, there are the same issues in Vietnam and Cambodia with COVID and people not wanting to do nodding jobs because, let's face it, there are better jobs besides the industry that we're in of sewing hair in a tedious, base. I mean, it's the same problem everywhere. We are just until we can figure out how to automate hair, which means it's not handmade anymore, to have a machine be able to take hair and apply it with a machine like they do synthetic. Okay, I don't see that as possible because synthetic hair comes on yards and yards and yards of synthetic, spools. And I don't know if you're going to want 6-inch hair, if you're going to want 4-inch hair, if you're going to want 12-inch hair, to be able to put that into the machine to do that. But whoever comes up with that brilliant idea, I don't know if it's going to be while I'm still working, but that would be, what we're looking at. And I will tell you that the hiking factory is looking into different options of manufacturing. They just haven't been able to perfect anything yet at this point. So what we've learned is to expect the unexpected. I go to bed with a heavy head, not knowing what I'm going to know tomorrow.
Right.
I like to sleep soundly, and I have to be honest with you. I have not been sleeping soundly, not knowing what tomorrow brings. Not just because of my own family with COVID. Thank God we've all been healthy, and or my staff and the people I work with. But I don't know what the factories are going to tell me on a day-to-day basis. I hope to wake up tomorrow morning with some more positive news than what we've been getting. I have not gotten negative news in the last few days, and so that's a good, promising thing. But tomorrow we can wake up and they can say they're in their 3rd wave, God forbid, and they're closing the factories again. what do we do then? What if Indonesia and Cambodia and China at some point over the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I mean, this is worse. This is the worst case scenario, has a third wave or another wave of this, and they have to physically close like they did in March and April. What do we do then? Don't even want to think about it. But is that possible? Anything is possible, knowing what we now know. So I do go to bed with a heavy head. I hope to wake up, like I said, tomorrow morning with more positive news. And trust me, I'm going to share that with my staff first, and then with the industry. I've been updating the industry with several email blasts. We've been putting it on our website. I've been sharing it with you guys, sharing it with the American Hair Loss Council. I don't know how much more we can communicate what is going on, but I hope we come across as transparent, because we are.
And I love the passion too, because us at the Hair Society, we're very passionate too. I think you've felt that, you've spent some time with us, and it comes across speaking volumes that you care, because we're a united industry and we all have to care about each other and help each other, especially during these times of a global pandemic. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to sit down and spend, an hour.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the industry. I appreciate the questions that you asked. They were thoughtful, and I'm sure it's coming from your own experience of wearing hair, being an owner of shops, as well as the Hair Society, talking to many, many retailers. I just wish everybody well. I will share and continue to share what's going on in the industry. I hope everybody stays safe. I hope that you're protecting yourselves, wearing protective gear. I do see some studios not doing what they should be doing, as far as, I believe. Listen, I'm gonna end it with this. We went out and bought 100,000 plastic disposable capes in April. And I did that because my wife is a hairdresser, and she did not want to use capes that she had to wash. She didn't want to take home the capes, or she didn't want to have to spray it. She wanted to tell her customers, I've got disposable masks. I'll wear gloves if you want. And I have disposable capes and neck wraps we bought. And we were selling them basically at cost. Over the last 6 months, we sent out numerous emails, and a lot of the studios, took advantage of it. And a lot of them are doing what they're doing. We wanted to help protect the retailers and the consumers. And although I use the word passionate, which I am, we're also compassionate. We feel for you, and we feel for the consumer. We're here for one purpose: to serve your needs, and we know you're there to serve your consumers' needs. So it's a chain reaction, and we're in it together. I'm going to leave you with that.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you again. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to Thinking Out Loud, a podcast brought to you by the Hair Society. Visit us online at www.thehairsociety.org.